Often you hear governments stand up in the first piece of legislation in what will be a long haul of budget urgency in terms of the debates that are there fizzing with what their budget has provided. And we're hearing this about cost of living pressure relief for families. But Madam Speaker, it has not taken New Zealanders long to pull this apart, to understand that the poorest New Zealanders are not getting that relief, that the wealthiest New Zealanders are getting 2 times the relief of minimum wage workers. So when we have the Minister of Finance standing up in this House and claiming that they are the party of workers, well, I can tell you the party of workers does not take away cheap public transport for kids. It does not take away healthy school lunches. It does not put costs back on prescription charging, and it does not do things that it knowingly knows will raise rents and insurance. The very things the Reserve Bank have been telling New Zealanders that is putting a pressure on their back pocket and the money they have. One of the important documents that accompanies the list of new initiatives, although that's reasonably thin in this budget because there aren't that many, is a very interesting document called the BIFU. And what the BIFU does is it does give their economic and fiscal update. I think, and this is Treasury, not the government's forecast for the future. One of the things that I find concerning, and I think New Zealanders, as they're counting their $2 and $4 a week tax cuts, will send a chill down their spine, because we know how these tax cuts have been paid for. They've been paid for by cuts to public spending and doing things like and funding things like the reintroduction of interest deductibility. And what does the Treasury, the economic advisors to our government, have to say? Well, it says that the reintroduction of rental property interest deductibility for tax purposes and changes to the Bright Line rules are all expected to have an upward impact on rents. Rents are forecast to continue rising rapidly over the early years of projection. So this is the kind of thing that New Zealanders can look forward to because of the choices that this government has made in this budget. This budget is a budget of broken promises. That Nicola Willis, when delivering her budget, started her speech talking about what she'd heard on the doorstep. I'm sure she also heard on the doorstep that people were expecting the $250 a fortnight that National went out and told them they were getting. And what are they getting, Madam Speaker? They're getting, I cannot quote my colleague Karen McInalter, but not much would be the paraphrase of what he said. But Madam Speaker, I think of superannuitants. When I have to go out and look them in the eye and talk about my $20 tax cut and know that for a single superannuitant, that is $2.15. How can that be seen as anything that any government could hold its head up about? It is not, even as Chris Hipkins said, enough to buy a packet of chewing gum. This is not how you address cost of living. These are tax cuts that are at the expense of core public services, the very things that these cuts will put pressure on New Zealanders' household budgets and New Zealanders' wallets. This budget will cost Kiwis more. This is not a budget that the tax cuts is going to deliver the relief that they thought was coming their way. They are going to pay more for their health. They are going to find that what is delivered in our schools is being cut. There is not a single cent in this budget for support learning services. How are we going to ensure that those kids who we need to support the most to make sure they have educational attainment are supported? And Madam Speaker, I will, in many other contributions over the course of the next 3 or so days, talk about the cuts to climate funding that account to billions and billions of dollars. So this government not only is letting down New Zealanders today, but it is letting down the next generation of New Zealanders too.